I came home for Christmas from medical deployment and asked my daughter, was the $2,000 I sent each month enough? She looked confused. What money? My parents went pale. My sister changed the subject. I didn't yell. I did this. There was a knock at the door. My name is Cassandra. I am 32 years old and a combat medic in the Army. After 9 grueling months deployed overseas, all I wanted was to hug my 14-year-old daughter, Emma. I had been sending $2,000 home every month to my parents who were caring for her. The joy of our reunion quickly turned to confusion when I casually asked if the money was enough. Emma looked at me blankly and said, "What money?" My parents went pale. My sister Amanda suddenly changed the subject. I felt my heart drop to my stomach. I never planned to be a single mother with a military career. Life has a way of reshaping your plans when you least expect it. 5 years ago, my husband Daniel died in a car accident, leaving me alone with our 9-year-old daughter, Emma. We had been high school sweethearts, married young, and had Emma when I was 18. His death shattered our world, but I had to find a way forward for Emma. The military had always been my backup plan. My father had served, and though our relationship was complicated, I respected his service. With Daniel gone, the stability of military health care and education benefits became increasingly appealing. I enlisted as a combat medic, combining my passion for health care with service. The pay was decent, and the structure gave Emma and me something we desperately needed. After losing Daniel, predictability. For 3 years, I managed to avoid overseas deployment. My unit commander understood my situation and kept me stateside. Emma and I settled into a rhythm. We lived near base in a small apartment. She made friends at school, joined the soccer team, and slowly her smile returned. Each night I would help her with homework, and on weekends we would have movie marathons or go hiking. We were healing together. Then came the orders I had been dreading. My medical unit was being deployed to a conflict zone for 9 months. My stomach dropped when I received the notification. Emma was 13 now, growing into her own person, navigating the complexities of adolescence. This was exactly when she needed her mother most. My parents lived in our hometown about 2 hours from base. They had retired early after my father sold his successful construction business. Their relationship with Emma had always been loving but distant, holiday visits, occasional weekends. My mother adored Emma but struggled with the energy a young teenager required. My father was gentle with her in a way he never had been with me. My younger sister Amanda lived nearby them with her husband. They had no children of their own yet, though they had been trying. Amanda had always been envious of my relationship with our parents, believing they favored me despite evidence to the contrary. We were cordial but not close. With limited options, I approached my parents about caring for Emma during my deployment. They agreed immediately, seeming genuinely happy to help. We discussed every detail of her care, her school schedule, extracurricular activities, dietary preferences, friend circle, and emotional needs. The financial arrangements were explicit. I would transfer $2,000 monthly to their account specifically for Emma. This would cover her food, clothing, school supplies, activities, transportation, entertainment, and allow for some saving toward her future. The amount was generous, nearly half my deployment pay, but Emma deserved every penny. My parents insisted it was too much, but I wanted Emma to maintain her quality of life and perhaps enjoy some extras to compensate for my absence. I set up the automatic transfers through my military bank account. The first payment would arrive the day after Emma moved in and continue on the first of each month thereafter. I showed my parents the confirmation of the setup, and they acknowledged the arrangement. The week before deployment was a flurry of preparation. Emma and I packed her belongings, visited her new school, and set up her bedroom at my parents' house. I bought her a special journal where she could write letters to me when video calls weren't possible. We established a communication schedule accounting for the 13-hour time difference and security restrictions. The night before I left, Emma crawled into my bed like she used to after Daniel died. "Will you be safe, Mom?" she whispered. I could not promise absolute safety, but I promised to be careful to think of her with every decision and to come home. 9 months will go by fast, I said, not believing it myself, and I will call whenever I can. Leaving Emma at my parents' house the next morning was the hardest thing I had ever done. She tried to be brave, but as I got into the taxi, her composure broke. She ran after the car, sobbing. My father had to hold her back. As I watched through the rear window, my own tears flowing freely. The image of her red face and outstretched arms haunted me throughout my deployment. The flight home felt eternal. After 9 months in a dusty field hospital treating injuries, I would never forget American soil looked like paradise. I had managed to arrange my return 3 days before Christmas, wanting to surprise Emma rather than tell her my exact arrival date. If something delayed my travel, I could not bear to disappoint her twice. My sister Amanda picked me up from the airport. She seemed tense, but I attributed it to holiday stress. On the drive to my parents' house, she updated me on family news, carefully avoiding specific mentions of Emma, except to say, "She has grown so much. You will be shocked." The reunion with Emma was everything I had dreamed about during lonely nights on deployment. When I walked through the door, she was decorating Christmas cookies in the kitchen. She dropped the frosting bag and launched herself into my arms with such force that we both nearly fell. I held her tight, noticing immediately that she was taller, her face more defined, less childlike. "You are really here," she kept saying, touching my face as if to confirm I was real. "I missed you so much, Mom." My parents hovered nearby, their expressions a mixture of joy and something I could not quite identify. My father hugged me awkwardly while my mother fussed about my weight loss and exhausted appearance. The house was decorated beautifully for Christmas with a towering tree and elaborate decorations I did not recognize from previous years. That first evening was a whirlwind of emotions. We had dinner together. Emma sitting so close to me that eating was challenging. She barely touched her food, too busy telling me about school, her friends, and books she had read. I noticed she wore jeans that were slightly too short and a sweater with worn elbows, but assumed these were just favorite comfort clothes. When Emma mentioned struggling to complete a science project because she could not afford the materials, a small alarm bell rang in my mind. My mother quickly interjected that they had eventually figured it out. My father changed the subject to my experiences overseas, carefully avoiding any mention of finances. As Emma showed me to my room, I noticed my parents' new furniture throughout the house. The living room set was clearly recent, a style my mother had pointed out in magazines for years. My father's study contained a new desktop computer setup that looked expensive. In the driveway sat a late model SUV. I did not recognize which Amanda explained was Dad's new toy. Emma seemed healthy and happy overall, yet small details troubled me. Her phone was the same model she had when I left, now with a severely cracked screen. When I asked why she had not replaced it, she shrugged and said it still worked fine. She mentioned babysitting for neighbors and helping at a local cafe on weekends to earn some spending money, which seemed unnecessary given the funds I sent. That night, after Emma fell asleep in my bed, unwilling to let me out of her sight, I checked my banking app. Every transfer had gone through exactly as planned. 9 payments of $2,000 each, totaling $18,000. The money had definitely reached my parents' account. I considered asking them directly but decided to wait. Perhaps there was a simple explanation. Perhaps they were saving the money for Emma's college fund as a surprise. Perhaps I was being paranoid after months in a combat zone where trust could be a liability. The next morning, I woke to find Emma had prepared breakfast for me, though it was just toast and fruit. "Grandma says we need to go grocery shopping today," she explained. "We do not have much food right now." My sister Amanda arrived mid-morning with her husband bringing Christmas gifts and more questions in my mind. She had a new diamond tennis bracelet she kept touching, explaining it was an early Christmas gift. When Emma admired it, Amanda promised to take her shopping when we can afford it, giving my parents a quick glance I could not interpret. Throughout the day, I noticed more inconsistencies. Emma had outgrown most of her clothes, but had few new items. Her winter boots had been patched with duct tape. Her school backpack was literally falling apart at the seams. None of this aligned with the generous allowance I had provided. By the second day of my return, the inconsistencies could no longer be ignored. While helping Emma organize her room, I casually mentioned the monthly allowance. "I hope the money I sent was enough for everything you needed," I said, folding a stack of t-shirts that all looked at least a year old. Emma stopped arranging books on her shelf and turned to me with genuine confusion. "What money?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I kept my voice carefully neutral. "The $2,000 I send every month for your expenses." Emma's eyebrows shot up. "You sent money and Grandpa said you could not afford to send anything because of your deployment expenses. They said we needed to be careful with spending because they were paying for everything." At that moment, my parents appeared in the doorway. They must have been listening. My mother's face drained of color, and my father suddenly became intensely interested in a spot on the carpet. My sister, who had been passing by with a laundry basket, stopped abruptly. "Hey, who wants hot chocolate? I am making some with those peppermint marshmallows Emma loves." The transparent attempt to change the subject confirmed my growing suspicion. Something was very wrong. I smiled at Emma, not wanting to alarm her. "That sounds nice. We will be down in a minute." Once the others had gone, I closed the bedroom door and sat beside Emma on her bed. "Honey, I need you to tell me exactly what happened with money while I was gone." The story Emma told broke my heart piece by piece. My parents had told her from the beginning that I could not send money due to deployment complications. They provided her with basic necessities but complained frequently about the financial burden of caring for her. Emma had started working weekends at a local cafe when she was 14, using her earnings for school supplies, activity fees, and occasionally new clothes. "I did not want to ask you for anything," Emma explained, tears forming. "You were doing something so important, and Grandma said you were already stressed about money. I sold my iPad to pay for the science trip, and when the soccer team needed new uniform fees, I just quit because I knew Grandma and Grandpa could not afford it." I pulled her into a tight hug, my mind racing with calculations. $18,000 would have covered all her needs many times over. The new furniture, my father's car, my sister's bracelet, and countless other improvements around the house suddenly made sickening sense. "Did Grandma and Grandpa ever give you an allowance?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Emma shook her head. "They gave me $10 for my birthday. Grandma said times were tight." That evening, while Emma was showering, I discreetly examined my parents' home office. In a desk drawer, I found vacation brochures for a Caribbean cruise scheduled for February. The booking confirmation showed a suite package costing over $5,000. In another folder were receipts for jewelry, electronics, and clothing that totaled thousands more. When I checked Emma's school portal using her login information, I saw her grades had slipped significantly. Comments from teachers noted increased tardiness and incomplete assignments. One teacher had written, "Emma appears tired in class." She mentioned working weekend shifts interfering with homework time. The reality was becoming undeniable. My parents had systematically diverted funds meant for Emma's care to finance their own lifestyle improvements. My daughter had been working while attending school full-time, selling her possessions and going without necessities, despite my explicit financial support. When Emma mentioned missing a dentist appointment because the insurance was complicated, I nearly lost my composure. I had provided complete documentation of her military-dependent insurance coverage that required no payment for routine care. Later that night, I cornered my sister in the kitchen after everyone else had gone to bed. "Did you know they were taking Emma's money?" I asked directly. Amanda fidgeted with her bracelet. "I did not know the whole story," she hedged. "Mom and Dad mentioned you sent some money for emergencies, but said it was not much. They complained about expenses a lot. They received $2,000 every month, specifically for Emma," I stated flatly. Amanda had the decency to look shocked at the amount, though I doubted her surprise was genuine. "Well, childcare is expensive," she eventually said. "They deserve something for taking her in." "Taking her in? She is their granddaughter, not a stray dog," I replied, struggling to keep my voice down. "And I would have happily paid them separately for their time if they had asked. That money was explicitly for Emma's needs." Amanda shrugged uncomfortably. "You should talk to them, not me. I am sure they had their reasons." As I lay awake that night with Emma sleeping soundly beside me, I formulated a plan. The betrayal cut deep, but impulsive confrontation would only create more trauma for Emma during what should be a happy reunion. Christmas was 2 days away. Extended family would be arriving. I needed to be strategic, not emotional. The next morning, I woke early and drove to a nearby coffee shop with free Wi-Fi. Emma was still sleeping, exhausted from the emotional excitement of my return. I needed privacy for what came next. First, I downloaded my complete banking records for the past 9 months, documenting every $2,000 transfer with dates, confirmation numbers, and account details. The paper trail was unambiguous. Next, I called my unit's legal assistance office. As an active duty service member, I had access to free legal counsel. I explained the situation without emotion, focusing on facts. The attorney on call advised me that what my parents had done could potentially qualify as financial exploitation, particularly given that the funds were designated for a minor's care. He promised to email me relevant documentation and offered to connect me with local resources. When I returned to the house, my mother was making breakfast, acting as if nothing was amiss. "We are going to the mall later to finish Christmas shopping," she announced. "Do you need anything?" "Actually, I would like to take Emma shopping for some clothes," I replied. I noticed she has outgrown most of what she has. My mother's smile faltered. "We got her some things a few months ago. Kids grow so fast at this age." I can see that, I said pleasantly. She could use some new winter boots, too. The duct tape repair is creative, but not very warm. My mother busied herself with pancake batter. "Things have been tight, you know. Your father's medication costs went up." This was news to me. "What medication is Dad okay?" "Oh, just blood pressure. Nothing serious." She waved dismissively, then added, "But insurance only covers part of it." My father had excellent retirement health coverage that I knew included prescription benefits. Another lie. While Emma and I were getting ready to leave, I overheard my parents arguing in their bedroom. "She knows something," my mother hissed. "You need to stick to the story about medical expenses." "What about the car?" my father responded. "We cannot exactly hide that. Say it was a good deal you could not pass up. Use your retirement account excuse. And the cruise brochures in the office." My sister's voice joined the conversation. "I told you to hide those. Just keep things normal through Christmas. She will go back to base soon anyway." Their casual assumption that I would simply return to duty without addressing the situation infuriated me, but I maintained my composure. This was about evidence gathering. Now, at the mall, Emma and I had our first truly private conversation. Over lunch in the food court, I asked her more about the past 9 months. Each new detail strengthened my resolve. "I worked every Saturday and Sunday morning at Café Luna," she explained. "The owner, Mrs. Garcia, gave me extra shifts during school breaks. That is how I bought my Christmas presents this year." "Did Grandma and Grandpa know you were working so much?" Emma nodded. "They drove me sometimes, but usually I rode my bike. It is about 2 meters each way." "In winter?" I asked, remembering the harsh local weather. "It was not so bad," she shrugged. "I wore lots of layers." I learned that Emma had sold not just her iPad, but also the collection of fantasy novels I had given her over the years, her wireless headphones, and even the silver locket containing a photo of her father and me. "Mr. Winters at the pawn shop gave me $50 for the locket," she said, eyes downcast. "I needed it for the graphing calculator for math class. Grandma said they were too expensive and I should borrow one, but nobody would lend theirs for the whole semester." Each revelation was a fresh wound, but I maintained a supportive demeanor. "You did what you thought was right, Emma. I am proud of your resourcefulness, but I wish you had not needed to work so hard or sell your treasured possessions." That afternoon, I insisted on driving Emma to visit her friend Lily, giving me an opportunity to speak with Lily's mother, Kate. We had been friendly before my deployment, and I trusted her perspective. Kate confirmed my fears. "We were all concerned about Emma," she admitted after Emma had gone upstairs. "She would never join the girls for weekend activities because of work. She wore the same few outfits repeatedly. At Lily's birthday sleepover, she did not bring a gift and was so embarrassed we pretended it had gotten lost." "Did she ever mention money problems?" I asked. "She said her grandparents were on a fixed income and could not afford extras. We offered to pay her way several times, but she refused." "Such a proud girl." Kate hesitated. "I hope you do not mind, but I bought her new jeans and gave them to her as a random gift. Her pants were inches too short by spring." I thanked Kate for her kindness and asked if she would be willing to provide a written statement about her observations if needed. She agreed without hesitation. While Emma visited with Lily, I drove to her school. The building was closed for winter break, but I had scheduled an appointment with her guidance counselor, Mrs. Reynolds, who had agreed to meet briefly. Mrs. Reynolds' assessment was equally troubling. Emma's academic performance dropped noticeably around March. She went from a straight A student to mostly C's and B's. Her math teacher reported she often fell asleep in class. When we discussed it, Emma attributed it to working weekend mornings starting at 5:30. "Did anyone contact my parents about this?" I asked multiple times. They assured us it was temporary and that Emma was just adjusting to your absence. When we suggested reducing her work hours, they said it was Emma's choice and built character. Mrs. Reynolds looked troubled. We were concerned, but without evidence of neglect, our options were limited. I thanked her for meeting during the holiday and asked if the school had documentation of these conversations. She assured me they maintained detailed records of all parent communications. By evening, when we returned to my parents' house, I had gathered substantial evidence. I had photographs of Emma's inadequate clothing and worn shoes, testimony from her friend's mother, school documentation of academic decline work, verification from her employer, and bank records proving the money transfers. I also had Emma's journal, which she had voluntarily shared with me. Her entries documented numerous instances of being told they could not afford basic items she needed. Her grandparents' frequent complaints about financial burden and her own guilt about being expensive to keep. One particularly heartbreaking entry recalled Mom today but could not tell her about needing money for the field trip. She looked so tired on the video call, and Grandma said Mom is struggling to pay for her own food on deployment. I will just tell my teacher I am sick that day. That night I helped Emma wrap Christmas presents for the family. She had spent her cafe earnings on thoughtful but inexpensive gifts: homemade cookies for relatives, a coffee mug for my father, a scarf for my mother, and a photo frame for me. Meanwhile, I had noticed shopping bags from luxury retailers hidden in my parents' closet when I was searching for wrapping paper. The contrast could not have been more stark. While my daughter worked weekends and sold cherished possessions to afford a $10 photo frame, my parents had diverted thousands of dollars meant for her care to fund luxuries for themselves. Christmas Eve was tomorrow. Extended family would gather, and I would be ready. Christmas Eve morning dawned bright and cold. I had barely slept, my mind cycling through various approaches to the confrontation ahead. Emma sensed my distraction but attributed it to readjustment from deployment. In reality, I was executing a carefully considered plan. Step 1 was financial protection. While Emma helped my mother prepare breakfast, I visited the local branch of my bank. As a precaution, I had already frozen the automatic transfers from my deployment account. Now, I established a new checking account with Emma as a joint holder, transferring funds from my savings to cover her immediate needs. The banker, a veteran herself, expedited the process when I explained I had just returned from deployment. Next, I called Lieutenant Colonel Richards, my former commanding officer and a trusted mentor. Now retired and practicing family law, she had offered guidance during difficult situations in the past. When I explained the circumstances, her advice was measured but firm. Document everything, Cassandra. Texts, emails, bank statements, photos. Wisconsin has specific statutes addressing financial exploitation of dependent that may apply here. She paused. Are you planning to confront them today? Extended family will be present, I explained. Witnesses make denial harder. Just remember, this is ultimately about Emma's well-being. Whatever approach causes her the least additional trauma should guide your decisions. She was right. Of course, this could not be about revenge or even justice in a conventional sense. It needed to be about recovery, financial and emotional, for Emma. My third call was to Staff Sergeant Martinez from my unit, now working in the JAG office. He confirmed that military family service centers could provide resources, including emergency financial assistance if needed, though my careful saving had made this unnecessary. More importantly, he offered to connect me with a victim advocate who specialized in financial recovery cases. The power dynamic with parents is complicated, he noted. Having a neutral third party can help maintain boundaries during resolution. By mid-morning, I had secured legal consultation, financial protection, and support resources. Now came the most difficult step, a private conversation with Emma about what would happen next. I took her to a nearby park away from prying ears. The winter playground was deserted, allowing us privacy on a bench overlooking the frozen pond. Honey, we need to talk about something important, I began. It is about the money I sent for your care while I was deployed. Emma tensed immediately. Are Grandma and Grandpa in trouble? They were nice to let me stay. This is not about gratitude or blame right now, I said carefully. It is about facts. I sent $2,000 every month specifically for your needs. Clothes, school activities, maybe some fun experiences to make my absence easier. That money never reached you. Emma's expression crumpled. They said you could not afford to send anything. That caring for me was straining their retirement. That was not true, I said gently. I sent more than enough to cover everything you needed and then some. Emma processed this information slowly, her analytical mind connecting dots. The new car, Mom's jewelry, the kitchen renovation. I nodded. Possibly yes. Her face flushed with anger, then embarrassment. I worked every weekend making coffee for strangers while they spent my money on stuff I sold. Dad's locket. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I thought I was helping by not asking for things. I thought we were all struggling together. I pulled her close as she sobbed against my shoulder. This was the rawness I had hoped to avoid. Yet, it was necessary for her to understand she had done nothing wrong. You did help, Emma. You showed incredible responsibility and maturity. I am so proud of you for that. But you should never have had to sacrifice your education, your possessions, or your limited childhood free time. That responsibility was mine, and I entrusted it to people who failed us both. When her tears subsided, I explained my plan. Tonight, when everyone is here, I'm going to address this directly. It might be uncomfortable. Are you okay with that, or would you prefer to stay with Lily's family? Emma straightened her shoulders. I want to be there. They lied to me all year, Mom. I want to hear what they say. I nodded, respecting her choice while making a mental note to watch her reactions carefully. After tonight, we have options. We can stay here through Christmas if you want to see the extended family, or we can go to a hotel or even head back to base early. This is your call, too. What about the money? She asked. I will handle that part, I assured her. Your job is to focus on healing and enjoying our reunion. Let me worry about the financial recovery. Emma considered this, then asked the question that revealed her fundamental goodness. Will Grandma and Grandpa go to jail? That is not my goal, I answered honestly. My goal is accountability and restoration. They need to acknowledge what they did and make meaningful amends. If they cannot do that, then legal consequences might become necessary, but that would be their choice, not mine. Emma nodded, seeming relieved. Despite everything, she cared about her grandparents. This compassion in the face of betrayal made me even more determined to handle the situation with calculated precision rather than emotional reaction. Back at the house, preparations for the evening gathering were underway. My sister and her husband had arrived early to help. My mother was preparing elaborate appetizers in the kitchen, periodically shooting me nervous glances. My father was setting up extra chairs in the living room, his movements stiff with unspoken tension. I maintained a calm, neutral demeanor while finalizing my approach. The confrontation needed to be direct but controlled, factual rather than accusatory, and focused on resolution rather than punishment. Most importantly, it needed to acknowledge Emma's experience without making her the center of uncomfortable attention. While everyone was busy, I slipped into the home office and connected my phone to the printer. The documentation I had gathered formed a compelling narrative: bank statements showing the transfers, photos of Emma's inadequate clothing and school supplies, work records from the cafe, showing her weekend shifts, school reports documenting her academic decline, and statements from her teacher, counselor, and friend's mother. I organized these materials into 3 identical folders, adding a typed summary of events and a proposed resolution plan. One folder would remain with me, one would be presented to my parents, and one would be given to my Aunt Susan, my father's sister, and the family matriarch, whose moral authority was respected by all. As evening approached, I helped Emma prepare for the gathering. We had purchased a new outfit during our shopping trip, and she looked beautiful and age-appropriate in a festive sweater and jeans that actually fit. The simple dignity of proper clothing brought a lump to my throat. Ready? I asked as we heard the first guests arriving. Emma squeezed my hand. Ready, Mom. We descended the stairs together, stepping into the gathering storm with heads held high. By 7 o'clock on Christmas Eve, the house was filled with extended family. My father's sisters, Susan and Elaine, had arrived with their husbands. My mother's brother, Robert, and his wife, came bearing elaborately wrapped gifts. Cousins with spouses and children completed the gathering, creating a festive atmosphere tinged with the awkwardness that often characterizes family holiday events. Emma stayed close to me, receiving hugs and exclamations about how much she had grown. My sister Amanda hovered nearby, her smile fixed, but her eyes watchful. My parents played perfect hosts, my father mixing drinks while my mother arranged food platters, both carefully maintaining the appearance of a normal family Christmas. Aunt Susan pulled me aside early in the evening. You look tired, Cassandra. That deployment must have been rough. The deployment was difficult, I acknowledged. But what I found upon returning home has been equally challenging. Something in my tone made her study me more closely. Is everything all right with Emma? She asked perceptively. We will be discussing that during dinner, I replied. I would appreciate your attention when we do. My aunt, never one to miss subtleties, nodded slowly. You know I am always in your corner. Dinner was served buffet style at 8 with everyone finding seats around the extended dining table and adjacent card tables set up for the occasion. I strategically positioned myself at the main table with Emma beside me, directly across from my parents. Aunt Susan sat to my right, completing the critical sight lines for what would follow. Conversation flowed around typical family topics. Cousin Jamie Unk greater than S new job, Uncle Robert's knee replacement, the children's school achievements. I participated minimally, waiting for the natural lull that would come after everyone had been served and settled. When that moment arrived, I gently tapped my water glass with a spoon. The conversations gradually quieted as attention turned my way. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I began, my voice steady. Being home for Christmas after 9 months deployed is a gift I do not take for granted. Having Emma back in my arms is everything I dreamed about during difficult days overseas. Murmurs of appreciation and supportive comments rippled around the table. While I was gone, I continued. I made arrangements to ensure Emma would be well cared for. This included sending $2,000 home each month specifically for her needs. I paused, watching my parents' expressions shift from social smiles to frozen masks. That totaled $18,000 over 9 months. My mother's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her wine glass. My father stared fixedly at his plate. Yesterday, I discovered that Emma never received any benefit from those funds. In fact, she was told that I could not afford to send money and that her presence was a financial burden. A shocked silence fell over the table. Emma looked down at her lap, uncomfortable with the attention yet resolute in her quiet dignity. While Emma worked weekends at a local cafe to pay for school supplies and sold personal possessions to afford field trips, these funds were diverted to home renovations. A new vehicle, luxury items, and vacation planning. My sister Amanda interjected, her voice artificially bright. I'm sure there is a misunderstanding about the expenses involved in raising a teenager. Perhaps we should discuss this privately after dinner. There is no misunderstanding, I replied evenly, sliding the folders from beneath my chair. These contain complete documentation, bank transfers, Emma's work records, statements from school officials, and testimony from community members who witnessed her going without necessities. I placed one folder in front of my parents and handed the other to Aunt Susan, whose expression had hardened into something resembling her brother's face when he was especially disappointed. Emma maintained a 3.22 grade point average, while working weekends, received no allowance, missed medical appointments, and was denied participation in school activities due to supposed financial constraints. My voice remained measured despite the anger burning beneath my words. Meanwhile, $18,000 that should have provided her a comfortable life instead furnished this house and funded luxuries I am still discovering. My father finally spoke, his voice defensive. Now wait a minute. Do you have any idea what it costs to raise a child these days? Food, utilities, transportation. I do know, I interrupted. I have been raising her alone for 5 years. $2,000 monthly was calculated to cover all reasonable expenses several times over. We never agreed to an accounting of every penny, my mother said, attempting indignation. We provided a home supervision and love. Love does not send a 14-year-old girl to work at 5:30 in the morning while her guardians sleep in. I countered. Love does not force a child to sell her father's locket to buy a calculator for school. Emma flinched at this revelation, and several relatives gasped audibly. My Uncle Robert, always the family peacemaker, tried to intervene. Surely there were misunderstandings on both sides. Perhaps there was no misunderstanding, Emma said. Suddenly, her voice small but determined. Grandma specifically told me Mom could not afford to send money because of deployment expenses. When I needed $65 for the Science Museum trip, she said they could not spare it, so I sold my iPad. I worked every weekend for months so I would not be a burden. The raw honesty of her statement silenced every attempt at deflection. My mother's face crumpled. Whether from shame or being caught, I could not tell. My father tried a different approach. We may have mismanaged some aspects of the arrangement, but we provided a safe home. Child care has value too. You know, if you felt you deserved compensation for your time, you should have said so, I replied. I would have gladly provided it separately. Instead, you chose to lie to Emma about my financial support while using funds designated for her care for personal luxuries. Aunt Susan, who had been silently reviewing the documentation, looked up with cold fury. A Caribbean cruise, Thomas. while your granddaughter worked as a barista and wore duct tape boots. My father had the decency to look ashamed, but my mother attempted one more deflection. We planned to pay it back. We had unexpected expenses this year. What expenses justified taking from a child in your care? I asked. The kitchen renovation, the jewelry, the new patio furniture. When no answer came, I continued to the next phase of my planned approach. I am not interested in public humiliation or family division. I am interested in accountability and making this right for Emma. These are my terms: full accounting and repayment of the funds, a direct apology to Emma acknowledging the specific harm done, and a written agreement regarding any future financial or guardianship arrangements. Or what my father asked, a hint of his old authority creeping into his voice. Or, I will file formal charges of financial exploitation of a dependent minor, I stated calmly. My military legal counsel has already outlined the potential consequences, both criminal and civil. My sister, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly found her voice. You would sue your own parents after they took Emma in when you chose to deploy. I did not choose deployment, Amanda. I received orders which I followed while trusting my family to honor their commitments to my child. I turned to face her directly. And yes, I would pursue legal remedies if necessary, just as I would for any other form of child neglect or exploitation. I knew nothing about this, she insisted weakly. Your new bracelet suggests otherwise, I observed. As does your presence during conversations about keeping the story straight regarding the missing money. The extended family sat in stunned silence. Uncle Robert's wife was openly crying. Aunt Susan had moved to sit beside Emma, her arm protectively around my daughter's shoulders. What happens now? My mother asked, her voice small. Tonight, nothing more. This is Christmas Eve, and I will not rob the family of their celebration. Emma and I will participate as planned. I looked around the table, but come December 26th, I expect to begin a structured resolution process. The choice of whether that happens privately or through legal channels is yours. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. The timing was coincidental, but the interruption served as a perfect punctuation to my statement. My father rose automatically to answer it. He returned moments later with a startled expression holding a certified envelope. It is for you, he said, extending it toward me. I recognized the return address of the legal assistant's office on base. The documents I had requested earlier, formal templates for restitution agreements and financial accountability, had arrived with perfect dramatic timing. Taking the envelope, I said simply, "Thank you. These will help us move forward constructively." The remainder of the dinner proceeded in uncomfortable waves of forced conversation and awkward silences. Extended family members processed the revelation in various ways. Some offering Emma quiet words of support, others attempting to broker immediate reconciliation, a few simply observing with the fascination reserved for witnessing private family implosions. Through it all, Emma maintained remarkable composure, accepting comfort without seeking pity, answering questions honestly but without elaboration. I had never been prouder of her strength and grace under pressure. Later that night, as guests departed with subdued holiday wishes, Aunt Susan pulled me aside. "I will help ensure they make this right," she promised. What they did was unconscionable. "Thank you," I replied sincerely. "My goal is resolution, not destruction. Emma still loves them despite everything." "You are a better person than I would be in your position," she observed. "Not better," I corrected. "Just focused on what matters most. Emma needs healing more than I need retribution." As we prepared for bed that night, Emma asked the question that had clearly been weighing on her mind. Will we ever be a normal family again? I considered my answer carefully. We will be a different family, one built on truth and accountability rather than comfortable lies. Whether your grandparents can be part of that depends on their choices now. Emma nodded thoughtfully. "I'm glad you came home when you did, Mom." "So am I, sweetheart," I whispered, holding her close. "So am I." The knock at the door on December 26 came precisely at 10 o'clock in the morning. My parents, who had maintained a careful distance during Christmas Day celebrations, exchanged apprehensive glances. My sister Amanda and her husband had arrived minutes earlier, completing the circle of those directly involved in the situation. Emma sat beside me on the sofa, her posture reflecting the confidence our honest conversations had begun to rebuild. Aunt Susan had insisted on being present as a neutral family witness, positioning herself, literally and figuratively, between the opposing sides of the living room. My father opened the door to reveal Mr. Harrington, the attorney from the base legal assistance office, who had agreed to facilitate our discussion. His presence immediately established the seriousness of the proceedings without escalating to courtroom formality. "Thank you all for agreeing to this mediation," Mr. Harrington began after introductions. "My role today is to help structure a conversation that addresses the financial discrepancies that occurred during Cassandra's deployment and establish a framework for resolution." The clinical description of what had happened as financial discrepancies rather than theft or exploitation set a tone of problem-solving rather than punishment. This was deliberate part of the strategy we had discussed to maximize the chances of actual restitution rather than defensive obstruction. For the next 3 hours, we engaged in a methodical process of accountability. My parents, faced with the comprehensive documentation I had gathered and the gentle but firm guidance of Mr. Harrington, gradually abandoned their defensive posture. My father, always more straightforward than my mother, was the first to acknowledge the full reality of their actions. "We did divert the funds," he admitted. "Finally, it started small, using part of the first payment to fix the dishwasher. Then it became easier to justify using more for other household improvements, telling ourselves it benefited Emma indirectly. By the 3rd month, we were treating the money as general income." My mother, tearful but still struggling with full admission, added, "We convinced ourselves we deserved it for taking her in. That childcare was worth compensation." She looked at Emma with genuine remorse. "But we should never have told you. Your mother sent nothing. That was cruel and manipulative." Step by step, Mr. Harrington guided us through a complete accounting of the diverted funds. The total, including the planned cruise that had been fully paid, exceeded the $18,000 I had sent. My parents had literally spent money they had not yet received, anticipating future transfers. The resolution plan took shape with surprising cooperation once the full acknowledgement occurred. My parents agreed to a structured repayment schedule, beginning with the immediate cancellation and refund of the cruise. They would sell my father's new car and return to their previous vehicle. My mother's recent jewelry purchases would be returned or sold. For funds that could not be immediately recovered, they committed to monthly payments of $1,000 until the debt was fully repaid. Mr. Harrington formalized this in a legally binding agreement that included consequences for noncompliance. The most important element from my perspective was the direct apology to Emma. Mr. Harrington wisely suggested this occur without an audience. So my parents spoke privately with Emma while the rest of us stepped onto the porch. When they emerged 20 minutes later, Emma's eyes were red, but her expression was peaceful. Whatever had been said had begun the healing process. "I believe we have a workable resolution," Mr. Harrington concluded, collecting signatures on multiple copies of the agreement. "This provides accountability while preserving family relationships, which I understand is the primary goal." As he prepared to leave, my father asked the question that had clearly been weighing on him. "Could you have pursued criminal charges for this?" Mr. Harrington nodded solemnly. Financial exploitation of a dependent is taken very seriously, particularly when the guardian is entrusted with funds for the dependent's care. The documented deception and the minor's resulting hardship would have made a compelling case. The gravity of what they had narrowly avoided settled visibly on my parents' shoulders. My mother whispered, "Thank you for not taking that route." "This was never about punishment," I replied quietly. "It was about making things right for Emma." In the weeks that followed, our new reality took shape. Emma and I remained in town through New Year's, staying at a hotel rather than my parents' house. This physical separation provided emotional space for everyone to process what had happened while maintaining the family connection Emma still wanted. The financial restitution began immediately. My parents sold the new car within days, applying the proceeds to the outstanding balance. My mother returned unworn clothing and unused household items. My father took on consulting work to supplement the retirement income, enabling the monthly payments. Emma's physical needs were more easily addressed than her emotional ones. We replaced her outdated phone and worn clothing. I insisted on buying back her father's locket from the pawn shop, paying well above market value to compensate for the sentimental loss. Her iPad was replaced along with the books she had sold. The deeper healing required professional guidance. When we returned to base in January, Emma began working with a therapist specializing in trust issues and family dynamics. Initially reluctant, she gradually embraced the process of understanding and processing her feelings of abandonment and betrayal. My sister Amanda reached out in February with her own apology. "I should have questioned what was happening," she admitted during a video call. I saw the signs but chose to look away because it was easier. Were you benefiting from the money, too? I asked directly. Her hesitation answered before her words did. The bracelet was a gift from Mom. I did not know specifically where the money came from, but I should have questioned how they could afford it when they were supposedly struggling with Emma's expenses. Our relationship remained strained but civil, with potential for improvement through continued honesty. By April, Emma's academic performance had returned to her previous excellence. Freed from the burden of weekend work and financial stress, she rejoined the soccer team and developed new friendships. The resilience of youth combined with proper support enabled her recovery faster than I had dared hope. My parents maintained their repayment schedule with perfect compliance. By the 6-month mark, they had returned nearly $12,000 through various means. More importantly, they respected the boundaries we had established, never pressuring for more access to Emma than she was comfortable giving. When my current assignment ended in June, I requested a transfer to a unit without deployment rotations. This required declining a promotion opportunity, but Emma's stability took precedence over career advancement. We relocated to a small house near the new base, establishing our own home after years of temporary arrangements. Emma's therapist suggested carefully structured visits with my parents as part of the healing process. The first-a-day trip to a neutral location was awkward but productive. My father, always more comfortable with action than words, had prepared a handmade jewelry box to hold a recovered locket. My mother had compiled a scrapbook of Emma's childhood photos, acknowledging the importance of preserving connections to her past. By summer's end, we had established a new normal. Emma spent weekends with friends rather than working. She started high school with confidence and clear boundaries. My parents continued their amends through consistent payments and respectful interactions. My sister and I maintained limited but improving communication. The betrayal would always be part of our family story, but it would not define our future. The painful lessons in accountability, forgiveness, and conditional trust had transformed all of us. Last week, Emma asked if her grandparents could visit for Thanksgiving. Not staying with us, she clarified, but maybe dinner together. I think I am ready for that. Her capacity for measured forgiveness humbled me. If you are ready, then yes, I agreed. Family is complicated, but it is still family. As I reflect on our journey from that shocking moment of what money to today's cautious rebuilding, I am reminded that trust once broken can never be perfectly restored. But something new and potentially stronger can grow in its place. A relationship founded on accountability, clear boundaries, and earned rather than assumed trust. If you have experienced family betrayal or financial exploitation, please know that recovery is possible. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for healing. Accountability is not vengeance. It is the foundation of any healthy relationship. And protecting those we love sometimes means making difficult choices that others may not understand.